One sentence detonated a billion-dollar trajectory. In 2009, Megan Fox likened director Michael Bay to Hitler, and within 2 years, she was out of the Transformers franchise, with Bay later saying executive producer Steven Spielberg told him to fire her. The message from Hollywood was clear. The industry's newest bombshell had become its most divisive lightning rod. Then the culture flipped. The much-mocked Jennifer's Body, dismissed on release, was reappraised in the Me Too era as sharp, feminist horror, and Fox's performance became a touchstone for how the media had misread her. At the same time, an old story about sexualized early encounters with Bay resurfaced. Fox clarified she was never assaulted but argued that the conversation proved how thoroughly she'd been objectified and underestimated. Glamour, then backlash, icon, then punchline, and finally, a reclamation on her terms. Was Megan Fox a cautionary tale about Hollywood's obsession with the femme fatale, or the case study of a woman who forced the industry to look at itself? And what did it cost her to become both symbol and scapegoat in the same breath? Megan Denise Fox was born on the 16th of May 1986 in Oak Ridge, Tennessee, the younger of two daughters to Gloria Darlene and Franklin Thomas Fox. Her childhood was marked by instability. Her parents divorced when she was just 3, and her mother later remarried Tony Tonaccio. With her stepfather came strict household rules, a conservative environment that Megan often described as repressive. Television and movies were heavily monitored, and she was raised in a setting where discipline outweighed affection. From an early age, Megan gravitated toward performance as a form of escape. At just 5 years old, she began training in dance and drama, displaying a natural flair for movement and expression. By 10, she was competing in dance and modeling contests in Florida, where her family had relocated. While her home life felt constricted, the stage became a space where she could breathe, where glamour and possibility briefly replaced rigidity. Her relationship with her family was complicated. Megan has spoken openly about the loneliness of her youth, the sense that she was misunderstood and stifled. Yet those very struggles sharpened her independence. She grew into adolescence with an unshakable determination to break free from small-town expectations and pursue something larger than the confines of her upbringing. School life offered little refuge. Frequently bullied by peers for her striking looks and unconventional style, Megan felt isolated, often finding comfort in books and film instead of friendships. The experience left her with a sense of being an outsider, a role she would later channel into the femme fatale persona that Hollywood both celebrated and vilified. This blend of repression at home, alienation at school, and passion on stage forged a young woman both vulnerable and defiant. By her mid-teens, Megan had resolved to leave behind the world that constrained her and chase the dream that had glimmered since childhood, the promise of Hollywood stardom, where beauty and rebellion could be transformed into power. Megan Fox's pursuit of independence led her to a path both difficult and unconventional. After relocating with her family to Port St. Lucie, Florida, she attended Street, Lucie West, Centennial High School, but never felt at home in a classroom. By the time she was 13, Megan had already entered the world of modeling, winning several awards at the 1999 American Modeling and Talent Convention in Hilton Head, South Carolina. The experience gave her a first taste of recognition, affirming that the stage, not the schoolyard, was where she belonged. Despite early success, her teenage years were marked by tension. Megan often clashed with her stepfather's strict rules and described her upbringing as stifling, with little space for creative expression. At school, her striking looks made her a target for bullying rather than admiration. Isolated from peers, she focused on honing her craft, taking acting classes, practicing monologues, and competing in local talent contests. Her resilience was forged in these years, learning to withstand rejection and ridicule while keeping her eyes fixed on Hollywood. At 16, Megan made a bold decision. She tested out of high school via correspondence courses and moved to Los Angeles to pursue acting full-time. It was a leap of faith, driven by ambition and a refusal to let small-town limits define her. Her early years in Los Angeles were far from glamorous. She landed background roles and minor parts in direct-to-DVD films, slowly navigating the unforgiving audition circuit. In 2001, she secured her first credited role as Brianna Wallace in Holiday in the Sun, a Mary-Kate and Ashley Olsen movie. While small, it gave her valuable exposure and the confidence that she could hold her own on screen. During this period, Megan supported herself with modeling gigs and television guest spots, all while sharpening her skills. She studied other actresses, learned the mechanics of camera presence, and built a portfolio that hinted at her potential. The journey from Port Street Lucy to Los Angeles was filled with obstacles, but Megan Fox's early career was defined by a mix of grit, beauty, and unwavering belief in her destiny. It was the beginning of a climb that would soon take her to the pinnacle of fame and place her under the harshest spotlight Hollywood could offer. Megan Fox's true breakthrough came not from her early TV roles, but from a part that would catapult her into global recognition and, almost simultaneously, trap her in the Hollywood stereotype. After a string of small appearances, most notably a recurring role on the sitcom Hope and Faith, 2004-2006, she landed the role of Michaela Baines in Michael Bay's Transformers, 2007. The film, a summer blockbuster built on explosions and spectacle, unexpectedly turned Fox into its human centerpiece. Cast as the sharp-tongued, mechanically gifted girlfriend of Shia LaBeouf's character, she became an overnight sensation. Her introduction scene leaning over a car engine in a midriff-bearing top was endlessly replayed, cementing her as a sex symbol for a new generation. Transformers grossed over $700 million worldwide, and Fox became the poster girl for a new kind of Hollywood glamour, edgy, sultry, and unapologetically confident. Her star rose even higher with the sequel Transformers: Revenge of the Fallen 2009. By then, she was appearing on magazine covers, ranked at the top of Sexiest Women Alive lists, and cast as the heir apparent to icons like Angelina Jolie. Studios rushed to sign her, and her face became synonymous with early 2000s pop culture. But Fox's breakthrough was more complicated than glossy headlines suggested. Even at the height of her fame, she was candid about the pressures of objectification. In interviews, she admitted feeling uncomfortable with how Hollywood framed her, valued more for appearance than performance. These comments made her both a media darling and a lightning rod. Her most daring move came with Jennifer's Body, 2009, a horror comedy written by Diablo Cody. Though dismissed at the time, the film later became a cult classic and a feminist touchstone, reframed as a sharp critique of how women's bodies are consumed and controlled. Megan's performance, once mocked, was later hailed as ahead of its time. Still, her relationship with Michael Bay became the most defining and volatile aspect of her career. Her outspoken remarks comparing Bay's directing style to Hitler ignited controversy, and by 2010, she was dropped from the Transformers franchise. What should have been her era of dominance turned into a career crossroads, with Hollywood questioning whether she was too rebellious, too candid, too dangerous for its carefully constructed star system. Despite the backlash, Megan Fox's breakthrough years proved her undeniable impact. She was more than a fleeting it girl. She became a cultural figure around whom debates about beauty, agency, and sexism swirled. For better or worse, she had forced her way into Hollywood's consciousness not just as a starlet, but as a symbol of its contradictions. If Megan Fox's career was defined by sudden ascent and sharp backlash, her personal life was equally scrutinized, painted in the tabloids as both a Hollywood romance and a storm of complications. In 2004, while filming the sitcom Hope and Faith, Megan met actor Brian Austin Green, best known for Beverly Hills 90210. She was just 18, he was 30. Despite the age gap, the two quickly fell into a relationship that would span nearly 2 decades, marked by passion, turbulence, and repeated separations. By 2006, they were engaged, only to call it off in 2009, citing career pressures. Yet they reconciled, marrying in 2010 inches, a quiet ceremony in Hawaii. Their marriage produced 3 sons, Noah, Bodhi, and Journey, and for years, Megan projected the image of a devoted mother balancing domestic life with stardom. Still, the relationship was far from smooth. Paparazzi chronicled their on and off dynamic, with Green admitting in interviews that Fox's rapid rise to fame put strain on the marriage. In 2020, after years of speculation, the couple announced their separation, and Fox filed for divorce, finalized in 2021. During the same period, Megan's romantic life became tabloid fodder for another reason: her highly publicized relationship with musician Colson Baker, better known as Machine Gun Kelly. Meeting on the set of Midnight in the Switchgrass 2020, the two began a whirlwind romance that blended glamour with spectacle. Their relationship, complete with blood-wild necklaces, fiery red carpet appearances, and declarations of twin flame love, fascinated and polarized the public. To fans, they were a dark, gothic love story come to life. To critics, a performative stunt drenched in excess. Fox herself seemed to embrace the spectacle, posting cryptic captions about passion and pain while openly praising Kelly as the partner who understood her intensity. Their engagement in 2022, marked by a dramatic proposal under a banyan tree, sealed by drinking each other's blood, was a social media frenzy. Yet by 2023, reports of strain began surfacing, with outlets speculating about breakups, reconciliations, and therapy sessions. Romantically, Megan Fox became a figure onto which the public projected its fantasies and judgments. The young star entangled with an older man, the mother fighting to protect her children from paparazzi glare, the femme fatale entwined in a gothic love saga. Her personal relationships mirror her professional trajectory: intense, controversial, impossible to ignore. Just as Hollywood alternately idolized and vilified her, the world watched her love life as both fairy tale and cautionary tale, each chapter fueling the mythology of Megan Fox as the eternal femme fatale. The scandals that defined Megan Fox's career were never about arrests or criminal charges. They were subtler but no less destructive, rooted in Hollywood's obsession with beauty, the politics of power, and the punishment of women who refused to play by the rules. The most infamous turning point came in 2009 when Fox compared director Michael Bay to Hitler in an interview. Though intended as hyperbole about his demanding style, the comment triggered a firestorm. Bay was furious, and according to him, executive producer Steven Spielberg personally ordered her removal from Transformers: Dark of the Moon 2011. Overnight, Fox went from being the breakout star of one of the biggest franchises in the world to being painted as difficult and ungrateful. The label stuck, and for years she struggled to find roles equal to her early fame. But the fracture with Bay was only one layer of the backlash. Even before the firing, Fox had been sexualized to an extreme degree. Stories resurfaced about her being asked as a teenager to audition in provocative ways, washing Bay's Ferrari in a bikini as part of her casting process for Bad Boys 2, 2003. While Fox clarified years later that she had never been assaulted, the anecdote became emblematic of how Hollywood reduced her to an object rather than respecting her talent. In the number Me Too era, fans and critics revisited her interviews and realized how consistently she had been mocked, dismissed, and punished for speaking truths that were uncomfortable at the time. Adding to the controversy was Jennifer's Body, 2009. Marketed as a raunchy horror comedy for teenage boys, the film flopped at the box office Critics mocked Fox's performance, using it as further evidence that she was a pretty face incapable of real acting. A decade later, however, the movie was reappraised as a feminist cult classic, and Fox's performance as a possessed cheerleader who devours men was praised as bold and subversive. The initial dismissal of the film became another symbol of how Fox was misread and mistreated by the culture at large. During these years, Fox also developed a combative relationship with the media. She was candid in interviews, calling out Hollywood's misogyny and the absurdity of being placed on Sexiest Women Alive lists while being denied meaningful roles. The honesty that endeared her to fans also fueled the narrative that she was volatile. For producers wary of controversy, she became a risk. By the mid-2010 seconds, Megan Fox's career had dwindled. She appeared in smaller films, cameo roles, and TV guest spots, but the megastar trajectory she once seemed destined for had evaporated. To some, she was a cautionary tale, a young actress who flew too close to the sun and burned out. To others, she was a martyr of a sexist industry that exalted her beauty, exploited it, and then punished her for speaking out against it. The scandal, then, was not a single misstep, but the accumulation of moments. The Hitler comment, the Ferrari audition story, the dismissal of Jennifer's body, the relentless sexualization by media, and the difficult label that dogged her for years. Together, they created a narrative of downfall that was as much Hollywood's doing as it was Fox's. And yet, beneath the wreckage, seeds of a comeback were beginning to stir. In the aftermath of her public clashes with Hollywood, Megan Fox seemed, for a time, to vanish from the very spotlight that once made her untouchable. Roles that should have cemented her as the heir to Angelina Jolie instead trickled into smaller parts. Jonah Hex, 2010, This Is 402012, and a string of supporting appearances that never matched the spectacle of Transformers. The industry's narrative was brutal. Fox had been fired, branded, difficult, and left behind in favor of younger, safer starlets. But Fox refused to disappear. She redefined herself quietly, building her family life with Brian Austin Green and taking fewer projects, biding her time until the climate shifted. That patience paid off in the mid-2010 seconds, when culture began reassessing how women in Hollywood had been treated. The rise of the number Me Too and number Time's Up movements reframed her story. Suddenly, interviews where she had warned of sexism and objectification were recirculating, and she was being hailed not as a diva but as a truth teller, silenced too soon. At the same time, projects once dismissed were finding new life. Jennifer's Body, mocked in 2009, was reappraised as a feminist cult classic. Critics and fans alike admitted Fox's performance had been misunderstood, with her portrayal of predatory power seen as bold satire rather than camp. What had been a career embarrassment now became one of her strongest calling cards. Professionally, Fox began testing comebacks with roles that leaned into her image, but allowed her more control in Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles 2014 and its sequel. She proved she could still carry a franchise, even if reviews were mixed. More recently, she has embraced smaller, genre-driven projects like Till Death 2021, a claustrophobic thriller that showcased her grit and earned positive reviews for her performance. Her personal life, too, became part of her rebranding. The highly publicized relationship with Machine Gun Kelly positioned her as a daring, gothic muse in pop culture's imagination. Whether celebrated as twin flames or criticized as performative spectacle, the pairing kept her in headlines and re-established her relevance for a younger generation who had not grown up with Transformers. The consequence of her early downfall was the loss of years at the top of Hollywood's A-list. Yet the comeback, while unconventional, has been meaningful. Megan Fox has reclaimed agency over her narrative, not as the ingenue forced into hypersexualized roles, but as a woman who survived an industry eager to discard her. Her resurgence is not about reclaiming the exact pedestal she once occupied, but about reshaping it. From cautionary tale to survivor, from femme fatale stereotype to cultural figure who outlasted the system that tried to bury her, today, Megan Fox occupies a space far different from the ingenue who once dominated early 2000s magazine covers. At 38, she has become less of a Hollywood starlet and more of a cultural figure, someone whose career reflects the shifting tides of how women are treated in the entertainment industry. Fox remains active in film, but she no longer chases traditional blockbusters. Instead, she gravitates toward projects that allow her to experiment with genre and push boundaries on her own terms, such as the thriller Till Death, 2021, and indie horror titles that tap into her cult status. She has also leveraged her image into fashion and brand collaborations, embracing her role as an icon of unapologetic femininity and gothic allure. Her personal life continues to generate headlines. The on and off relationship with Machine Gun Kelly, marked by dramatic engagements and rumors of breakups, has positioned her as a kind of modern myth. The femme fatale whose love life blurs the line between spectacle and sincerity. For some, it's pure tabloid fodder. For others, it's a performance art piece, a continuation of her lifelong challenge to Hollywood's expectations. Fox's legacy has shifted. Where once she was derided as a difficult beauty, she is now recognized as a woman ahead of her time, one who called out objectification and sexism before it was fashionable to do so. Her reassessment in the wake of Me Too transformed her from a cautionary tale into a figure of vindication, proof of how the industry can exploit and misjudge women while later rewriting their contributions. And so her story remains unfinished. Will Megan Fox solidify her resurgence into a second act of lasting artistic respect? Or will she remain forever defined by the femme fatale image that made and nearly broke her? The answer lies not in the headlines of yesterday, but in how she continues to navigate an industry, still grappling with the contradictions she embodies.